It's Saturday morning at 10 a.m., so you know what that means. It's time for What's Up, Ocala? With tens of thousands of viewers every month on our YouTube channel and millions so far on TikTok, we are joined by our host, local owner, and broker of Great Expectations Realty, Andrea Praber.
Good morning and welcome to What's Up, Ocala. I'm your host, Andrea Praber, and today we are talking about prepping for hurricanes. So if you are new to Florida and you are trying to figure out what you need to do and you're in a bit of a panic, this show is for you. If you're not from Florida, you're not living in Florida, some of these tips might actually be excellent no matter where you live. So we're going to jump right into this. This is going to go over the basics such as when the hurricane season even is. So in Florida, the hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30th each year. This year's hurricane season just started. So for those of us in Ocala, we honestly, come on, you have to admit, we don't see the effects of a hurricane much. So you'll see that people kind of tend to be a bit lackadaisical about it. Normally, a hurricane is just a bit of an annoyance for us. We try to get gas in our cars the week before one hits and everyone's emptied the gas stations and it's just annoying. The grocery stores also suddenly run out of bottled water and bread, so you can't even go grocery shopping well. You'll start seeing odd things go on sale like chicks over at the Tractor Supply store since all the stores closed down during the storm and no one's going to be around to care for the chicks. I ended up with 10 chicks for $2 one year. Yeah. So what about actually preparing? What can you do, especially if you're new here to Ocala? Well, this year it's really more important than usual. AccuWeather has projected a turbulent hurricane season, which doesn't sound promising. They think that the number of storms potentially are going to exceed the amount of names, 21, that the World Meteorological Organization assigns annually for Atlantic hurricanes. So that's concerning, very, very concerning. Researchers actually think that it's going to be a very, very busy hurricane season based on the La Niña conditions. I don't really know what La Niña conditions actually mean, but I do know that it means warm water and it's going to be uncomfortable with hurricanes. So let's talk about how prepared you actually are. Do you have your kit ready? Imagine for a moment that you're stuck at home for about 3 to 5 days, no going on the roads. It's probably raining outside and nothing is open. Also, most likely you have no electricity, so that's fun. I've lived through actually countless hurricanes, starting with the visit to my grandma for 2 weeks when I was 12. She lived in Florida, and on the second week of my visit, so did Hurricane Andrew. It hit Florida as well. My flight home was delayed. My mom was freaking out, and since Grandma lived in South Florida, we ended up evacuating to actually just outside of Ocala, and we visited my great-grandparents as they were living there at the time. While I was a teenager, my parents moved us to Puerto Rico, and we made landfall just a few months before Hurricane Hortense did. We got to enjoy our first hurricane together as a family there. That's very exciting. Then I moved to Florida in 2004. Yeah, you guessed it. It was just after Hurricane Charlie. I saw it in the newspapers. I figured since they just had a massive hurricane, it would be at least 10 years before another big one hit. Yeah, I had one hurricane per weekend, every weekend for the first month I lived in Florida. Francis, Ivan, and then Jean. Truthfully, I still would take a hurricane over a tornado any day of the week. We get gobs of warning. We have plenty of time to evacuate if we want. Our houses and our roads are built for hurricanes. Even our building code for roofs are specifically with hurricane force winds in mind. So yeah, tornadoes, no warning, no time to evacuate. And if they get big enough, they can obliterate an entire town. Not fun. Definitely not fun. So yeah, hurricanes, not so bad. Hurricanes, especially in Ocala, are just kind of boring. They can be uncomfortable. There's nowhere to go, nothing to do. And if you have no electricity, no AC. Did I mention that the hurricane season is during the summer here in Florida? Yeah, uncomfortable. That's basically a great word for it. So what can you do? You could get a generator. Then you won't be uncomfortable. You got the AC, fans, whatever. And then you can just kind of chill out and just basically have a holiday at home. No big deal, right? But is it really worth the cost? They can be really expensive. And if you're using a generator, you have to follow very strict safety guidelines to prevent carbon monoxide poisoning and fire hazards because they have fuel in them. You want to keep generators outdoors in very well ventilated areas away from any doors, windows, and vents. And also, getting sufficient fuel can be kind of problematic. With an actual storm hitting Ocala being few and far between, since we're in the middle of the state, you have to decide if it's an expense you're willing to take on. I would suggest waiting for a hurricane prep tax holiday. Yeah, you heard me right. The tax holiday is timed with the start of the 6-month hurricane season. So we just had one. It's part of a wide-ranging tax package called HB 7073. Lawmakers just passed it in March, but it actually is just happening again. During the tax holiday, consumers will not have to pay taxes, any sales taxes, on items ranging from, packages of batteries to portable generators. Because we just had one tax holiday that ended yesterday, I will let you know that there is a second holiday for the same items that will be held for 14 days, and that's starting August 24th. Why then? Because that is the peak of the season. That's the beginning of the peak of the season for hurricanes. So that's when they're doing it, last chance to get all prepped up. So what's cool is a lot of retailers also offer big sales that kind of coincide with that tax holiday. So yeah, among other things, you're going to be able to avoid taxes on reusable ice packs, portable radios, fuel tanks and packaging for batteries, packages of batteries, food storage coolers, great time to purchase those, tarps, portable generators, $3,000 or less. So that's probably when you want to go ahead and do those. They'll be on sale and no tax. Hello. Also, the tax exemptions apply to such things as pet food, pet leashes, cat litter, pet beds, over-the-counter pet medications, pet carriers, and bags of dry dog food or cat food costing $100 or less. So it's a great time to stock up on that stuff. And if you missed the tax holiday, again, I would go ahead and still get some stuff together. Then at the end of August, go ahead and get some more or upgrade the items or get some items that just make you a little more comfortable. So let's get into it. Here's how to prep for the hurricane season. What exactly do you need? Well, first off, you're going to want to develop a family emergency plan that includes evacuation routes. You're also going to want to have meeting points and communication methods, because what if your cell phone or one of your family members' cell phones is lost or damaged, or you can't get a signal because there's no cell tower? Have some methods to get around that. You're also going to want to have emergency contacts like neighbors and friends that can agree to physically go and check on you and you on them, especially if someone's not able to be reached by phone. So make sure your out-of-state family members have those contacts and their info, emergency contacts list, and vice versa. You're also going to want to keep your important documents and your irreplaceable items, such as photo albums, in a waterproof container. Cannot emphasize that enough. If you do have to evacuate, discuss your evacuation plans with family members and neighbors so everybody knows where you're going and how to get in touch with them. There's also something called a go bag. Honestly, even if you don't live in Florida, you should have one of these. They're amazing. There's floods, fires, tornadoes, blizzards, hurricanes, earthquakes, and tsunamis all over the world. So no matter where you live in the world, you should have a go bag. And having it ready with your essentials is incredibly important. I don't think it's too morbid, but it does kind of get you in the right mindset. If I were to tell you to go into your house right now, you had 10 minutes, only 10 minutes to go inside your house and get items for yourself, your family, your pets, what would you be able to do? Would you know where your important documents are? Would you be rushing around trying to find some extra sets of clothes and medications? Do you even have a basic first aid kit? It's terrible. Be sure that you have plenty of essential items like non-perishable food, water, medications, flashlights, batteries, first aid supplies, and then include items for pets such as food, water, medications, and comfort items. Don't forget to include important documents, cash, and personal hygiene items. This is especially important since during the storm, there are no stores open. There's no popping into CVS to grab some tampons or something. So maybe you should have those things you need ready to go. It will probably just sit there for several years. But again, these are non-perishable items. They're not going to go bad. So go ahead and put those to the side, especially if you have babies and toddlers. You're going to need this stuff. So Nothing that goes bad. I've had my go bag sitting in my closet for so long that I actually had to go in and update the clothes sizes since Lexi wouldn't be able to fit in the jumper or the shoes that I put in there years ago. So speaking of that, it's a good idea to go through the go bag about once a year and update anything that might not fit, may have expired, or may just have a better option available to you now. I do it each year in June, which coincides with the new hurricane season. I just lay everything out on the bed, check the items against my checklist, and then I'm good to go, and I can feel secure the rest of the year knowing my stuff is ready to go. Now, what about protecting your home? There's a lot of things you could do. You can inspect your home for vulnerabilities and make necessary repairs, such as reinforcing windows and doors and roofs. Spring is a great time to do this, but it's not too late, and if you haven't gotten to it yet. Trim your trees, bushes, reduce the risk of debris damage during high winds. Do not have trees over your house or your vehicles. Try to make sure that you're moving as much water as possible away from your home. If you have puddles by your front door with a small spring shower, you better figure that out before you have several days of rain. If a storm is on the horizon, you will want to make sure to secure outdoor furniture, grills, and any other loose items to prevent them from being projectiles. Trampolines, just to let you know, they should either be flipped upside down and secured or just taken down entirely. I know it's a pain, but those things can really fly in a high wind. There's a lot of jokes here in Florida about not being worried until you see Jim Cantore. And the reason we are so familiar with the various personalities on the Weather Channel is because during the hurricane season, we're all monitoring the weather forecast and staying updated on all the latest developments because we're watching this stuff 24 hours a day. That's when a storm is actually forming and it narrows down to Florida and it's in its path. We literally have the weather channels on pretty much 24/7. It helps us to make decisions, what we want to do, how big is the storm, how fast is it moving, where does it look like it's heading. All of this can change quickly, and so we need to adjust accordingly. So yeah, you get pretty familiar with the Weather Channel. Something that's also helped for all kinds of weather is actually signing up for the emergency alerts and notifications from Marion County. It's free. You can sign up for that at alertmarion.com. Another thing you want to do is familiarize yourself with evacuation zones and shelters in your area. This is especially true if you live near the coast or you live in a mobile home. You're probably going to have to evacuate. Normally here in Marion County, the public high schools are where they set up to shelter the public. Some allow pets and some don't. So if you're coming with a pet, if you're a pet owner, be aware as to which ones you can go to and which ones you can't. Also, bring all your pet supplies because they only provide shelter from the storm. They do not provide everything for your pets. Speaking of pets, even if you stay at home, now would be a really good time to ensure that your pets are wearing their tags and identification, or even better, are microchipped. Also going to want to review your insurance policies. On all of the hurricane prep lists, they always encourage us to get our insurance documents around and, get in touch with your insurance agent. And truthfully, they don't really go into detail. So today we have Macy. Welcome back, Macy.
We love to be here.
Yes, we love it when you come on here and talk all things insurance. So how do people prep for a hurricane? What should they be doing?
A lot of people, like you said, they're asking questions of what insurance information that, they tell you to get ready. So I always tell my clients this, and me and you have kind of already talked about, taking pictures of your home prior to a calamity.
Right.
If you have all your electronics, go ahead, take that. We talked about that spring cleaning day. You had the good Sunday when everybody decided to pitch in and help you clean the house. Go ahead, take the pictures. That way it's showcasing everything you have in your home. Regardless if it's a fire or a hurricane season with flood, you have a clear depiction of everything in your home while it's still intact.
It would be so easy to forget items that you maybe don't use very often, but they're valuable.
Yes.
I mean, luggage and stuff like that. You don't use it very often. You might not even think about it. But then when you have to replace it.
If you have to replace your entire house.
Oh, goodness.
You've talked about mold and water damage before. And that gets very expensive when you have to basically replace your whole life at that point.
Right. Right.
So I think a lot of it's going to be that's a good way to mitigate going through the claims process. You have physical representation to say, this was in my home prior, I expect it to be there after.
It's a good point.
So, and then another thing is, a lot of times with insurance, go ahead and call your agent or your broker and go over all of your policy documents. Yes, it is good to have your deck pages because it shows basically your deck pages for your insurance is going to be all of the quick summarized version of everything.
I much prefer looking at the declaration pages than looking at like the entire 60-page document. Oh.
You know, they're a lot quicker to look.
Yes.
They're a lot quicker to look at. But when you have those particular questions of what does my policy cover? And let's be honest, when everybody's shopping and you know, going about their day to day, and it's just something that you got to get done, a lot of people don't like to see all the ins and outs. But it's a good copy to have in your house and say, if you have an exclusion, you're going to be able to see that in your policy. Is it a lot of lingonese and verbiage? Yes. But at the end of the day, that's going to be basically where you're going to look at that. Talk to your broker. Insurance, again, is an imaginary product, like most people like to say it is. But at the end of the day, it is a product that should be built to perform. So if you have all your dominoes set up properly prior to a calamity, everything should go in one single motion. And then a lot of times talking to your broker, if I have a claim, who am I calling?
Right.
You should be really calling your broker or your agent prior to calling the big carrier. That way you can have a conversation.
It's a lot better to have this conversation when you're not stressed out, when you're not worried about it, when there's not a storm on the horizon, because a lot of people don't realize if there's a storm just out of our vicinity but likely to hit Florida, y'all aren't writing policies.
So we have what's called a moratorium. So if there is a storm that is close enough, there's no more writing. And this brings me into another keynote is go ahead and talk about flood insurance with your agent or your broker. Because as soon as a named storm goes up on the news stations, there's no eligibility to write.
It's too late.
It's too late.
Yep.
The only people who get exclusions on that are people who are closing their home and they're just purchasing it. They can still have the flood, and there's going to be no waiting period on that.
We definitely had delays on sales because they couldn't get insurance because there's a moratorium. They straight up, nope, storm's too close.
They don't even make those exceptions.
Yep.
So it does happen, but a lot of people, they don't think about it, and then they're like, I'm worried.
Yeah, I would be too.
So that's where I got, a lot of times I'm always telling clients, that's something that you're prepping beforehand. Don't wait, because if you are purchasing a flood policy and you do not currently have one, you have a 30-day waiting period that you have to go through to be able to even have a policy actually go active.
Right.
So
you need it now for a storm 30 days out from now.
Pretty much. Even if you went by today, you would still have a 30-day wait. So that's 30 days within hurricane season that you're doing a 50-50 shot of it being active. So it's better to prep beforehand. I mean, look at what happened in Vermont. Nobody would ever think about all of the flooding that happened in Vermont. None of those people had any flood coverages. So basically a whole town got flooded and they all were basically self-insuring. So everybody had to eat their own cost.
That is crazy.
The state of Florida are technically an entire flood zone, even if you're in an X zone. I mean, look at, what happened in Fort Lauderdale and Miami and Fort Myers, and there was a lot of inland areas that were X zones.
Right.
No one ever had flood coverages, and guess what? That was not covered under their homeowner's policy.
Yeah. Now, I've mentioned it on my channel before that I want flood insurance. I've got flood insurance because I've seen too much. I've seen just way too much. I would just like to sleep at night. So for me, yes, it is an expense, but it helps, and it's something that I no longer have to worry about. I have insurance for that. So, for something like that, yes, I'm in a flood zone X. Is there any possibility that I'm going to get flooded out at my house? Probably not. But I still have the insurance just because I have seen too much. And we just, with the weather these days, it's just not possible to predict what's going to happen, what's not. Really hard. So I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Because everybody always thinks about flood as just kind of, paired with hurricanes. But here in the state of Florida, we also know, it's monsoon season half the day, if not the full part of the day.
Yeah.
So if you're having 24 inches of rain that's coming in and goes into your house, that's considered flood.
Right.
It's not going to be covered under your homeowners.
It might be, something external as well. Like, let's say it's a water main that breaks and floods the neighborhood. It might be something that's completely not weather related, but it still fits in the category of flood insurance.
And at that point, I always like to tell people, I'm like, this is what's covered and this is what is not going to be covered. And those are the situations where it's better to have the flood insurance. And that way, you're covered for all perils that could possibly hit your home. So it's just having that lengthy conversation. And I know some people have been living here for years in the egg zone and, they've never had a flood. They've never even had anything close to a flood. But especially during hurricane season, it's about, if there's some underlining areas of your home, or, make sure that you have those sandbags ready, or you're prepping, going around your property prior to a hurricane.
Now is a perfect opportunity because we do get those monsoon, basically. It's a big, huge rainstorm. So if you're seeing puddles near your house with just a simple summer shower, that's really a good opportunity to go, okay, that's a problem area. Because you don't want to have a problem area and then you have 3 days straight of solid, heavy rain. That's not when you want to try and take care of it when it's like the wind is blowing outside, you're stuck inside. No, you want to take care of those low-lying areas and those problem areas ahead of time. Maybe get some gutters, work on the spouts,
Definitely
that water
get your
away from the house.
Cleaned, because if that water builds up and again spills into the house.
Yep. That's problematic.
That's technically flood zone area. So
so work on that. Just a little bit of preparedness ahead of time is going to save you so much trouble down the road. So that's basically what we wanted to get across today, right? Waterproof and fireproof, just saying.
Yep. That's how you need to be. And then also, for your vehicles, go ahead and print out your policy jacket for that, or have your paperwork, all of your insurance paperwork with that other significant paperwork.
It's funny that you mentioned that because when they say hurricane prep, you never think of cars. But I have seen many times where a tree falls on your vehicle that's in the driveway. And
so cut the trees.
Yeah.
Make sure that we're making sure that they're not, hanging over a little bit too dangerously close.
Yes. And, maybe park those cars in the garage for crying out loud. But yeah, parking away from those big trees would be a definite help, but also making sure that you have sufficient insurance to cover said vehicle and maybe even, cover a vehicle in between times as you're getting this figured out, literally.
And then talking about other lines other than the homeowners, this is also going to be for everybody who owns boats, making sure that if you have them docked or moored and they're not going to your home, that you have an evacuation plan. A lot of times carriers prior to coverage, I've seen, as of recently, they want an evacuation plan as soon as we're writing coverage.
Oh, wow.
We have someone with, we're purchasing a 37-foot boat, and he's having it docked in Crystal River, but he also has storage for it at his home in, I think, further inland. But it's having that evacuation plan prior. They want to know that everything's going to be situated prior to hurricane season, especially with Hurricane Ian. That was very tragic. How many boats were absolutely sunk?
Oh, billions of dollars down. And a lot of them were just, sitting there wet docked, basically. They're just sitting there and completely destroyed. And had they moved them prior to, then they wouldn't have had that situation. So, because, hurricanes, we get plenty of notice that it's coming to Florida. Maybe not necessarily what area, but if you have a hurricane coming that side of the state and you have your boat in the water, you've got a few days normally to know that it is coming in the vicinity, and you might need to move that. So I can understand that.
And we do have teammates who, we actively get with our clients and other members. We have other referral partners that we use that they will go ahead and they will pick up your boat for you.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yes. And then also for people who have art collections, there are also people who are going to be able to house your art collections. So that way it is going to be all of the certification needed to go ahead and house the art. If you are in that problem zone and you feel like some of those art pieces, especially if they're not in your collection policies, that you can go ahead and have that during, those type of really, really calamity time periods, that where you're going to have them protected during that.
Yeah. If you decide to evacuate the night before, do you really want to try and figure out your artwork? I mean, it's just, no, you worry about yourself, your pet, and all of that. Trying to fit a big painting in my Prius, probably not going to factor in. Not going to happen.
Talking about pets, and this is just a fun fact. Being from South Louisiana, maybe we do things a little, funny.
Oh, y'all definitely do some different
stuff. We do
stuff.
some things funny. We talk a little funny too sometimes. But growing up, everybody had dogs,
Mm-hmm.
So what we use during hurricane season, we get small kiddie pools and you can get a bunch of dog pads. That way during the storm, your dog is probably going to be traumatized enough as it is. Most of them are not for the Thunder Buddy life.
No.
So that way your dog's still being able to use the bathroom.
Oh, so they just go in the kiddie pool?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. A lot of people, they'll buy turf. That way they can just hose it off after.
Yeah, you can get those for like, what, $5
yeah,
at
it's
the
like
dollar
$5,
store or something?
$8
That's
or something
awesome.
like that.
Oh my goodness.
So I've always loved to share that because so many pet owners have no idea what to do during that time.
Mine, she won't even go outside. She's such a prissy thing. She will not even go outside if it's raining. But if it's been 3 days, I mean, she's got to go. She's got to go somewhere.
They're going to have to go eventually.
Right. And then,
so that way, if you're going through one of those storms that are just circulating, we hate those, but it does happen. Your pet's still having that serenity to use the bathroom in the sanctity of your home, but also not disturbing the sanctity of your home at the same time.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound like fun. So, what a great idea. That's a great tip.
It's just about preparing beforehand. I know it's a lot of conversations and life is very busy, but take the time, whether it's 30 minutes to an hour with your broker, and go through all of the questions that you have. Do it prior.
Right.
If you're going to go ahead and, talk with your family about, hey, if this happens and we have a bad hurricane, we're going to, anything that you're going to use that if you have a tree, if you did not cut your trees, to go ahead and mitigate having further loss.
Oh, it's so much easier to get your trees trimmed right now than it is after a storm. After a storm, it can be a month out before somebody's going to be able to show up at your house because they're so booked out cleaning up the mess and the mayhem and the trees that are falling in yards and on houses, and they're busy. They're not coming to your house. So just do it ahead of time. Do it ahead of time. Be prepared ahead of time, and then you're not going to have to stress. You can actually help others as opposed to being the one in a situation.
And then also the day after the storm, go ahead and inspect your property. Sometimes there's not a big calamity at hand, but it's small. But if you let it fester, it kind of grows to be something big.
If a tree limb falls on your roof and punctures the roof, it doesn't even look that big a deal. But once the water starts getting in, and then you got mold and mildew and rot and all of it,
then after 3 days of it just sitting there.
Yeah. You don't mess with the rafters and getting those all weather worn. So it's a good thing to just take care of it. Just take care of it as soon as possible.
Just go ahead and just inspect the property. Go over just everything that happened. A lot of times that's a perfect time to clean up the yard, clean up around the house. There's going to be at least leaves around here in Ocala. Lord
Pine
knows
needles.
we have just like a whole lot of trees everywhere.
Yeah.
So just go ahead and take the time to inspect everything. Go over it, and if you have the prior pictures taken of your home, if anything were to happen, you have the before and after already for claims adjusters.
Okay, and don't forget, one of the most important supplies that you have to get for the actual storm itself when you are at home, probably with friends and family, and that is some alcohol, because all the stores are closed and you're going to be sitting there for a few days. There's nothing open. You might as well have a little bit of fun.
Oh, you might as well.
Yeah.
Get a pack of Uno cards and some playing cards.
Absolutely.
Passes all the time.
Yeah, playing cards, definitely. Just get yourself set up for, being there for a few days and just enjoy the time instead of worrying about the storm. much, much better
You can make
circumstance.
hurricanes in the middle of a hurricane.
Oh, yeah, that's fun.
That's fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. Have a little bit of fun. If you've done all the preparations ahead of time, then you just ride out the storm.
Yep, easy peasy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming in, Macy. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to What's Up, Ocala? Follow us all week on Andrea Praber's YouTube channel and TikTok. We'll see you next week at 10 a.m. on What's Up, Ocala.